I'd been in Nashville for an entire week, written songs all week long, had a 4-hour drive, and all I could think about was getting home. And I sat down with Jonathan and Mia, Jonathan Smith and Mia Fields. And at the time, me and my wife were very involved in prison ministry at our church, and Chainbreaker was thrown out as a title. She was like, well, you should write a song called Chainbreaker. The first thing out of my mouth was, if you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles. And they were like, Mike, go back, what'd you say? Literally like 15, 20 minutes later, we had written that song.
Christian artist Zach Williams' CD, Chainbreaker, won a Grammy in 2018 for Best Contemporary Christian Music Album. But there was a time in Zach's life when he had chains of his own. Zach was raised in Jonesboro, Arkansas, to Christian parents, and was raised in church.
It was storybook childhood. I mean, I had a great family, you know, from as early as I can remember. We were in church on Sundays and Wednesdays, and I knew all the stories in my head. I knew the scriptures and the teachings and things. Not sure that I really understood as far as like the heart part of it.
In high school, however, he began drinking and doing drugs.
It just kind of sucked me in, you know, that lifestyle. There wasn't anything that happened in my past or in my childhood that would, you know, have pushed me to using drugs or alcohol. It was more of a, you know, just kind of the wrong crowd. I knew it was wrong, but, you know, it was also, for me at that time, it was fun. I didn't think it was a big deal, but obviously as I got older, it began to be a much bigger deal in my life.
Zach was also a prep basketball star who hoped to go on to play college ball. But when an injury sidelined his career, he began to play guitar and his life goals changed.
I was like, I want to be a rock star now, so I can do all this and it's justified, and I can just, you know, continue to do this with my life. So for the next 10 years of my life, I literally carried a guitar with me everywhere I went.
He eventually formed his own band, ironically entitled Zach Williams and the Reformation.
You know, we had some success. We toured Europe a couple times and did a tour with the USO and played some music for the troops over in Japan one summer. And, you know, for me, I felt like I'd made it.
Zach met and began dating Crystal. The two later married, but Zach refused to change.
For the first several years of our life, you know, I was pretty bad, drinking a lot, still using drugs quite a bit. And I just remember telling my wife, you knew this when you met me, you know, I'm not gonna change. That was always kind of my thing whenever she would come to me and say, like, you know, you need to grow up. You know, we need to make some changes in our life. I knew she was telling the truth about everything, you know. I did need to make some changes.
All the while, his parents continued to pray for him.
That's where their faith was tested. But I also saw them never quit praying, never give up. Even when I didn't want to hear them pray for me, they would come to my house and sit on my couch and pray for me and my wife and my family.
Eventually, Zach tired of the rock life and the toll it was taking on his marriage and family.
Living the lifestyle I was living, obviously I couldn't be a good dad. With all the success I'd had from the band that we were in and the places we'd played, I was just, you know, I was a miserable just shell of a person. Going out and playing these shows wasn't making it any better, you know. I was standing on stage every night, just kind of for the high that I got of being out there in front of the crowd. And then I was walking off stage every night, coming home miserable.
While driving through Spain with his band, Zach heard a song on the radio.
I heard Redeemed by Big Daddy Weave come across the radio while we were in Spain, and God just got my attention and basically said, I see you differently than you see yourself. And I've given you this gift, I've given you all these chances, and, you know, I want you to use this for me, and if you will, I'll give you things you've never dreamed of.
That night, Zach called Crystal.
I was like, when this tour's over, I'm done. Quitting my band, we're gonna cancel our shows. I remember walking in the door and just busting into tears and just asking for forgiveness for my wife and kids and just apologizing for the past and all the wrongs I'd done, you know. I felt horrible. And it was like this moment with God where I just said, you know, I can't do this anymore. I don't care if I ever play another song or I play guitar. If what I'm supposed to do with my life is work with my dad in this construction company and just be a good dad and a good father and go to church, that's what I want to do. And when I got done praying that prayer and asking God to just come live in my life, you know, just be the Lord of my life, it was this, like I don't have to go and do what I've been doing anymore. And that's when, for me, things just started changing in my life.
Zach and Crystal both accepted Christ in 2012, and they began attending a local Baptist church in Jonesboro.
I stopped playing music for about 6 months, and then out of the blue one day I was walking around on a construction site with my dad, and I started hearing words to a song in my head, and I started writing them down, and before I knew it, I had written a Christian song.
Soon after, the leadership of the church asked Zach to be their worship pastor.
It just kind of blew me away because they were willing to take a chance on somebody that they really didn't know that much, but they had seen God working in mine and my family's life. But the first time I stood on stage and led worship, it was the very first time I ever remember feeling like I wasn't faking it. I just remember I had my eyes closed and I was just singing to the Lord.
Other doors began opening for Zach, including the chance to write with several noted Nashville songwriters. He began making the 4-hour trek regularly from Jonesboro. One evening, he got a call from a record label executive.
He said, "Hey, are you sitting down?" I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Well, played your song for the record label today in a meeting, and they want to offer you a record deal." And I was just like, what? The prayer that I'd prayed 6 months before that, God heard my prayer.
Zach, Crystal, and their children recently moved to a home near Nashville. He's currently touring with his band and is excited to see the plans God has for him and his music.
Since I hit the ground and fell on my hands and knees that day in my bedroom in 2012, it's been one thing after another that God has just shown up and really done in my life and in my family's life. He's strengthened my marriage, my relationship between me and my wife. It's just been really neat, to see and to be a part of. It's been so humbling, and just to know that He hears your prayers and your cries, it's really cool.